And we are now rolling again.
Okay, so we were with power and vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so you were saying that your power, you're going to access your power in your vulnerability, or that's by summary.
You're still confused by this.
Of course I am.
Yeah.
How can an ex-alpha male not be confused by vulnerability?
Well, I mean, I actually love that you're confused by it, and if you're willing, I think it would be interesting to hear from you, like, what about that confuses you? So when I say, for example, that the most powerful person in the room is the most vulnerable person in the room, tell me how does that hit you?
Well, it hits me like something I understand, so
Mm-hmm.
we might expose what I don't really understand.
Mm.
I'm not going to access my power unless I am willing to show myself, to put it out, to be there out without protection, without defense, and I'm being transparent.
Mm.
And that's when I'm going to be able to access my power.
You mean your vulnerability?
Right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm saying that's my creativity, is I'm going to have it there. And my creativity is my power.
So if you look back, we look back historically. Let's look at the campaigns of nonviolence in this country, for example, or that was actually before my time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I know of that from learning about it. A time that I remember more clearly was actually I believe it was in the Philippines. Do you remember? There was an uprising there in the Philippines, right? And I remember one of my early memories, not earliest, but one of my early memories was when the tanks were starting to roll, and they thought that people would just get out of the way, and they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's actually not all that new or confusing. We just keep forgetting. We just remain attached to a view of power as the ability to overwhelm with strength, or to roll over, or to in some way dominate others.
Right. To get others to do what you want them to do.
Right.
That was
Right.
what JJ brought in.
So again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We have such a strong cultural narrative on this. It's like we are steeped in this. It's very hard for us to come up out of it and to look through a different lens. But if you look at what are some of the things that move and inspire people to make changes, okay? When you look at that, I mean, I would challenge you to find a time when this wasn't the case. We look at moments when someone was willing to be vulnerable, to step out and say something unpopular, or to step in some way and allow that vulnerability to be seen and felt, and it moved and inspired people to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom Summer.
Say it again.
Freedom Summer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
So we really do have cultural examples of this.
Yes.
But we seem to also have an inability as of yet to trust that if we were to house ourselves in our deepest vulnerabilities with one another,
Mm-hmm.
that what you're saying, we would be safe, we would be okay, it would be powerful. We're still entrenched in the idea of strength.
Well, it's not. I mean, I agree with that, but there's a factor that really has to be dealt with, is that people do get eaten up when they move out and open. I said, here I am, and this is what I'm going for. I mean, people attack them for it. You've got the audacity to do that.
Yeah.
Down with you.
Yeah.
And I watched my language too.
I'm not saying it's not true, I'm not. I'm really, my glasses on my face are not rose colored right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I do believe that when enough of us are willing to see something different, and everybody's looking at everybody else, kind of like, are you gonna go? Are you like, how about you? Are you gonna go? And so yeah, there's a group fear going on. And I understand it, and I really do believe that. It's funny. So I'll tell you one of the more kind of, again, early experiences that I had that had me start to see something different. Was in college. Actually, it's funny. I went to college not too far from where we are here. I went to Mills College and was exposed there to the ecofeminist movement, Vandana Shiva. Starhawk, and that was where I kind of started to see that there was something different, than what I grew up with and what I knew as progress, economic development. I mean, you have to understand. It's like we grow up with these terms. It's funny because one of the only classes that I just really didn't get was economics, and I just kept looking, going, you're making all this shit up. I was just like, and I just kept got these terrible grades, and I was like, okay, I guess I just have to live with this, because that's a bunch of crap. That's what, as far as I was concerned. And so I started to see that there were different ways of doing math, around economics and all of that. But to me, I think that what was different about some of those movements, what I started to see, is that there was an acknowledgement of vulnerability as being powerful, as not being a liability, right? And this is, we go back to talking about masculine and feminine, and I have to say, like, there is this idea of the feminine as, the feminine is so soft, and the masculine is so strong, and I don't agree with it.
I know you don't.
I don't agree with it.
And I don't either.
One little bit.
And one of my colleagues, Jessica Gordon Nimhart, has written a book called Collective Courage. Bring it down. There we go. Collective Courage, a history of African American cooperative economic thought and practice. Okay? And first of all, she was trying to promote cooperative economics among black folks, and they kept saying, no, that's white guy stuff. That doesn't. And so she said, I want to write. I want to go to the archive. I'm going to pull the archives out, and I'm going to prove. I'm going to write the book that's going to say, here, this is the data you need to. There were no archives.
Yes.
She spent 10 years creating the archives. So she's out there by herself, doing what no one had ever done, and put the whole thing together, and came up with this book, and it's blown people away. So it's a perfect example. But in the book as well, there are stories. So you have the blacks who are being oppressed, okay, like no other group in the country, all right? And then within the black communities, the patriarchy acts itself out, just in the way it has in the other ones. And so the black women are oppressed, have the external oppression within the thing. But they're the ones. The women are the ones. The most vulnerable from the external conditions. They're the ones who were creating the cooperative, a lot of the cooperative economic practices and projects
Yeah.
that made huge difference in the life of black people.
Yeah. Well, I had 2 children come out of my body, and I know the strength that takes.
Mhm.
And so, you're very hard pressed to convince me that women are weaker or more vulnerable. I don't mean really weaker, or that our vulnerability is a weakness. So
Well, you're not weak any more than I am, and you.
But I think what it is an ability to. I think it's funny. There's this thing about women aren't good at math, which is funny. My daughters are actually both quite good at math, which I think is fun. But this idea that women are not good at math, and I kind of look at it and I think, well, maybe we just count differently.
Just
Count differently. I mean, I'm giving a little latitude in here, and this is the place where I insist that it can be fun, and we can play with new ideas, and we can kind of turn things around and look at them differently, and I think that's really what we have to do to get out of this entrenchment. We're so entrenched, even when we're fighting against the way things are. It drags us in to basically to dualities that we just uphold what is by being against it. I mean, there's some basic laws of physics in there.
And I have yet to be able to have the conversation with the activists that I have a lot of contact with. That this anti-capitalism, anti-oppression, anti-racism is reinforcing the whole thing that you're trying to get beyond.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for me to explain it well. And coming from a white male, it really is a hard sell. So we need to drag, some vocal women in, to make the same arguments. That's kind of one of my hidden agendas here, I think.
Yeah. Oh, to drag me in? I'm sorry. Is there a club? Are you going to? Wait. Here, I can put this.
Oh
on.
yes.
And you have your bone earring.
I have my bone earring.
Yeah. There you go. You can drag me, kicking and screaming.
Buffalo tooth, in fact.
To me, I have some crazy values. I really have values in things like play and pleasure and vulnerability.
Again, that makes me nervous.
I know.
It just pushes that. Like, oh, wait.
I know.
Go ahead.
And I think that those are going to be the things that enable us. The other thing that I think is fascinating is magic. I think magic is fascinating. I was just in LA a couple weeks ago, and I went to a conference, and they have this magic club down there. I don't know if you know about that. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a club for professional magicians. And so we brought into the conference somebody who was doing magic, and he really was talking about magic as being the ability to put one's attention where you want it and not where you don't want it. Right?
Or as it's called in corporations, marketing. Sleight
of hand. Well, no, I don't know. I was a professional marketer for years, so I'm not going to buy that one either. But it was really interesting to look at, and I watched for a really long time to see if I could see what was happening there. And there were a few things that we noticed, like, well, what is it that's happening? We noticed, like, the quality of attention. We noticed the kind of that there was a childlike, fascination of like how did you do that? I think that we've gotten to, like, we're so heavy. I think activist community in particular is like there's so much heaviness, and we're in so much pain, and all of that. And I think that there are some ways to counteract the heaviness that might also enable us to, like, we can't find the way out from here. It's like that saying, you can't get there from here. And I feel like if we could bring, some lightness, some play, some like that, these ways that you show someone, if you look at how you play with kids, sometimes it's like, you divert their attention. It's like there are ways to playfully, absolutely dismantle people's thinking.
All right, I'll make another confession. I was a father.
It's the Catholics on the couch.
I was an adopted father for 5 years.
Okay.
Okay. They adopted me, and I adopted them, and they were 2 and almost 4. They were always pulling me into the play.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm busy. I gotta do this.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Right. It makes the point. It makes your point. It's just really. I don't know. I don't really get it. I mean, to me, the whole thing has got to be really serious. Except, like, there's 2 things that are really getting through to me on this score. One is blues and jazz. My God, the power. I'm beginning to understand that power and how a whole culture of people who were externally oppressed use that creatively and powerfully in order to express all of the pain. But in the process of expressing the pain, they're liberating themselves internally, and refusing to internalize the external. It's an ongoing struggle. I mean, you don't, and
So freedom is an inside game.
And freedom is an inside game.
That's I think that's the truth right there. It's funny. I said I didn't have a poem, and I don't. I wish I had it memorized, but I have a poem called Emancipation. And the gist of the poem is that once the slave has become freed, once the shackles come off, that the freedom itself is daunting. There's that sense of I don't know how to do this, and that ultimately, all the external shackles might be gone, and yet I'm now in a prison of my own making. Because it's easier to dream of being free than it is to actually be free.
Right.
And I think that is pervasive. I think that is a pervasive problem. We actually don't have a sense of freedom internally, and we don't know how to manifest our freedom externally.
That was probably the most important transformative experience of my life, was when I was in a totally miserable state, and I'm not going to go through all the details, we don't have the time, but the end of it was I recognized that no matter what happens to me, I'm going to probably, most likely, have a very conditioned reaction to it, and I don't have to go with it. I can step back from it, and I can create a fresh response.
Yeah.
That's my freedom. That's my power.
Yeah. So I know, it's like I sound a little crazy, and there's a reason that I'm not 24/7 in activist circles anymore. I could be, for various reasons. As much as I, share, again, it's sharing values and even sharing politics and being able to see things and all of that. But to me, the way through is not against. That's not how we're going to get through. And I think it's about creating something very, very different.
And a lot of it is from the inside out.
Yeah, and then really using different tools. Oh, when you were talking about blues and jazz, that's right. I was thinking of. Have you ever watched capoeira? Do you know what capoeira is? Oh. Capoeira is Brazilian, I believe, and it was a form. It looks like dance when you see it, and it was dance that the slaves did. And they made it look entertaining and like it was dance, but it was a form of martial art. And it was a way of communicating, like it was a whole, but if you look at it, you go, oh, that's beautiful, completely subversive. And I honestly think that play and pleasure and
Okay.
vulnerability are the subversive tools that are needed to dismantle the systems as we know them.
That's a powerful statement. We've done power a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Love is just, I mean, throughout the whole thing, because that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And we've done sex. I mean, we didn't really get
We
into
saved
it too
your
deep, but
We saved your favorite for last.
money. How do we bring money into this whole thing? How does it,
Yeah.
because we're all, none of us, I mean, particularly actors, don't have enough money. We can't raise the money. We're
Oy.
et cetera,
Oy.
et cetera, et cetera.
I was a development director once for actually a progressive Christian magazine, which I was so shocked that there
Wow.
was one. I know.
Oh.
I was like,
No,
really?
no,
And
it's-
it's out of business now.
That's what I was going to say. It was just recent.
No,
I
they-
remember them back in the 60s.
No, they were
50s
around.
and
They were
60s.
around for many, many years. It was called The Other Side. It was a brilliant. I mean, you all probably know some people who were frequent. I think you mentioned Howard Zinn. I think he was a contributor. Various people. Beautiful magazine. Anyway, I was the development director for them, but they hated money. And I sat them all down one day and I said, you don't understand that you've hired me for the impossible job because you all hate money and yet you want me to raise it. And I can't raise money past how much you all don't want it. Right?
Right.
So the whole activists don't have money and we don't have money. And all that. Let me ask you this. Is money evil?
Well, I have to say I do have ambivalent feelings about it.
Did you need me to scratch you? Did you just have an allergic response?
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Is paint evil?
Paint?
Mm-hmm. Paint.
You mean like the colors in the room here?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. They're lovely, they're beautiful, they're powerful.
Okay.
That was my greatest role in the community, was I coordinated painting.
Yeah. Got it.
And I created so much controversy I couldn't take it anymore.
Okay. So somebody once did this really interesting exercise with a room of people that I thought was fascinating. They asked you to talk about money in all the ways, like how it affects your life and what you think about it and all this kind of stuff, and with all the charge people have about it and all that kind of stuff. But then you had to replace the word money with the word paint.
Oh, wow.
And as you were going through it, there was a certain point you were like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I have all this charge. Like it really had you see that we are not neutral at all about money.
Mm-hmm.
We have all this charge and everything else. Now, I am not even beginning to say that the ways that money flows and is used and everything out there is not a problem. I'm not saying that.
Power's got the same
Right.
problem with power and sex and all of that.
Right. But I'm saying that there is also a level where we are so money is it's an energy, it's a form of exchange, and before it was the money like we have, it was this like I give you this for your earring, and I don't know which one of us would
Not
get it
this
better.
one. I've got one at home.
Right. Okay. So barter is also
Right.
a form of exchange. I mean,
Placeholder. It's a placeholder.
well, but you have to agree on a value of something, right? I mean, it's not all that different. It's just the hoarding is different, right?
The manipulation of value.
The hoarding. Well, I don't even know if that's. I'm not sure because you can barter and manipulate. I mean, remember the whole thing with the tulips, right? I mean that we have like crazy things of how we
That's
kind
attack
of
to vanity.
put a value on money. But I'm trying to remember now. I actually used to know that story better, so I don't know that I could use it as a good example without remembering it well enough. But I guess my point is that in and of itself, right, we have this fear of money, and then there's a way that people kind of keep themselves poor, and and then I love this whole thing about how I love that like people of great wealth in America have to run over to other countries, and help like poor brown people, like wealthy white people from this country have to go and help the poor brown people, and so there's also a way that it it's
Yeah.
ego, vanity, right?
Right.
I feel better. I mean, so, but I guess my point is that isn't an exercise of money in and of itself. That's an exercise of what we imbue money with,
Right.
right? We've done that. I mean, I was going to say the money in my wallet, except that there isn't any. But actually, that's a great example. I don't have any actual cash in my wallet. I have credit cards. And somebody, and these numbers just get moved around from one thing to another. I will never see most of the money that supposedly is mine or that I use or whatever, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't really get away from the whole conundrum of being able to relate to money in a very creative and positive way, which I can't do yet. I have been able, in my opinion at least, to relate to power and understand power and realize power is good. It's life.
All right.
And let me just
go.
finish it. And so I see my sense of power and what it is and its nature, and I feel like I'm the elephant in the room because everybody else is talking about it as that's the way power is what is used to dominate people. Well, it's what's used to dominate, but that's a misuse of it. Power is how I live my life. It's organic. I can't do that with money. I've got too many associations embedded in me about money. I don't even know what they are.
So if you had $1 million, what would you do? Oh, okay. What?
JJ.
As somebody who's been working, I did my first regular volunteer job when I was 12 and my first whole punch a clock job when I was 16 because I left high school in 10th grade. Part of the problem is that what you have to do for money. And for me, my issues about money, coming through and working all kinds of grunt jobs, retail, house cleaning, landscaping, working businesses or whatever, is what you have to do to get it. How you have to whore yourself and do things that are against all of your other principles in order to get it. You get paid in bigger increments when you prove that you can put with a corporation or whoever else you're working for, your boss, ahead of your of the customer sitting in front of you and their interests and their needs over the interests of your coworkers. If you can prove that you can do that, you get compensated more, and that's why we have an issue with money.
Okay.
It's not money in and of itself. It's the fact that in order to get it in abundance, at least 9 out of 10 times, you have to take something off of somebody else's plate and prove to the people who have the capital that you're willing to do that in order to get the money.
Okay. So that's...
That's a viewpoint about money.
Yeah.
I totally get that viewpoint. Yes. Got it. So I was going to ask you, if you had $1 million, what would you do with it?
I would figure out a way in which I really don't know what I would do with it. I mean, I could come up, but I really don't. I don't have a clear notion of what I would do with it.
I mean, actually, I think it's, and I don't mean to not address that. It's just like that's a whole other video, and I can't, I don't know. There's just like a whole thing we could do around that, but I think that's an interesting question for you to answer, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because you've got a lot of people out there that are making all this money, whether they're making it that way off people's backs or they are actually providing value. I do think that some people make money because they provide value. I don't think that everybody makes money from, okay, so we're different in that way, but that's fine. Yes, I know more than a few even who do that. And they, it's how they use it, right? So, my thing is, so first of all, you don't have $1 million because you don't know what you would do with it. But if you were motivated to have $1 million and said, well, I want to send, there was the guy who can't remember, he made a lot of money, and he made a scholarship fund for everybody, like, in a town, and all the kids in this particular town where he's from, go to school. I mean, the thing is, there are a lot of people, and there's like a whole, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole on this one. There's a whole stream of social entrepreneurism. There's a whole stream of people who are looking to do business in ways that are socially responsible. I mean, I do believe that these are people who want to make changes, but they're not going to make it by making money evil. They're going to make it by looking at money as just a way of being able to do the things that we want and need to do to make changes. So if someone like you, who I think could probably do something powerful with $1 million, is too afraid of it, too resentful of it, doesn't want to deal with having it and all that kind of stuff, then yes, the money will continue to be in the hands of people that are more than happy to use it for their own gain and for their own, hoarding and all that kind of stuff. And then the people who I think would have a pretty damn good idea of what to do with it in order to make meaningful change are so afraid of it and don't want it that we're actually not going to change that balance of power.
Look, I want to go back to the question you put to me, if I had $1 million, what would I do with it?
Oh, good. You came up with something. What do you got?
No, I got a much more complicated response.
Okay.
So I'm part of an income sharing group. Okay, we pool all our money, and it doesn't make any difference if someone's making 100,000, someone's making 15,000. But we pool it all. People use it as they need it.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing this for 30 some odd years, and we own a lot of property.
Mm-hmm.
We are collectively, we have created a lot of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so. Yeah, and what we do with that is that we do this whole experiment around cooperative culture through the community that we've created and we maintain. And then there's all sorts of complications with that, but so there's a way in which, I know what I would do with $1 million because I'm doing it.
Mm.
But you asked me the question, and I took it, what would be Michael Johnson if Michael Johnson alone had the $1 million, and then I could come up with what, the scholarship funds or something like that. But that's not really what I would want to do with it. I don't have a clear idea of what I would want to do with it.
Revolving loans for cooperatives.
No, I mean, it could, the thing is, I mean, I'm identifying within me that I can't identify it.
So
because it's too. I mean, I've got the
Right.
whole thing is alien. I've kept it pushed away from me.
Revolving loans for cooperatives.
And all I'm saying is that back to power, you've given money power over you.
That's right.
You have made it more powerful than you.
That's right.
And in doing that, you're actually seeing it through the cultural lens of money being all powerful, and you're not accessing it. And again, playfully, pleasurably looking at how can I do something different? What magic can I create with this? How can I make a change with this? And I get that, and again, it's a reason why. Can I just tell you that I don't feel any safer amongst activists than I feel amongst conservative Republicans. I do not feel any safer. Those two groups, I experience exactly the same.
Wow.
Exactly the same.
Wow.
Energetically, those two groups feel exactly the same to me in my system.
Eek.
They do. They do. I mean, I'm being totally honest because I don't come in buying the line. I have something different to say. I'm presenting a different way of looking at things, and I stay under the radar. It's why I work with people, to help empower them to be in their spheres more powerfully. But really, it's a dangerous thing to come out and say, that maybe the way we see these things, that we could tweak it. Maybe it's not as powerful as saying maybe, freedom is like actually right here, and we're not, willing to take it. And that's, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a dangerous.
No,
I'm a dangerous motherfucker.
No, you don't sound
You-
like you're threatening anybody at that point. It sounds like they'd be happy to hear that.
You and Richard Pryor.
I'm going to have to wrap up.
So, all right. So, we're going to have to wrap it up on that, and I'm glad we didn't come to any, absolute total conclusions. I'm going to do two things real quick.
Do it.
One, I'm going to tell another story about myself, and JJ was talking about, revolving loan funds for cooperatives.
I like
So,
that.
The first thing is and it ties all of this stuff together if you stop and you think about it. I was swimming out in a pool with my girlfriend at that time, and she's very, very, very playful. And I was a lot less playful back 20 years ago than I am now. And she swam between my legs. And I said, oh, wow, that kind of, she said, that's all I'm playing. You swim through my legs. I had to work on get the nerve up to do that, to let go and play. So I think this whole notion about play, and sex is play, love is play, and if you start thinking about money and power as play, that I think is kind of brings, and at the same time it renders us, we have to do this by being vulnerable, moving into, not being vulnerable because we already are, but moving into our vulnerability, and because we don't know what's going to happen next when we do that. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen next when we're controlling either, because we don't end up controlling very well. The second thing, just to end this on, and this is shamefacedly promotion
Yay.
for money,
Do it. See?
is I am the co-author of a book called Building Cooperative Power. And it is tales of, whoops,
Hold it steady.
there we go. Get my directions straight here. And this is a very deep description of what it's like to be in a worker cooperative, and describing various kinds of worker cooperatives, but more importantly is talking about how to do regional cooperative development as being a key way to make cooperative power, to build cooperative power, and as a real alternative to the misuse of money and power that we see going on through the standard economic practices, the ones you couldn't, like, what are these people talking about? This makes no sense. It doesn't. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. We had a good time doing it. Thank you very much. And
Thank you, JJ.
we'll be doing some more. And JJ, you're awesome.
Thank you. Just a brief from each of you, what your, from teenage onward, what your general employment history was. What kind of jobs have you worked?
Let's see, have done everything from babysitting when I was old enough to do that, and then worked my way through college in restaurant work, waiting tables, that kind of thing, until I had my car accident and I couldn't do that anymore. And then I went more into ways that I could work where I didn't have to be on my feet. And I lasted about 6 months in the nonprofit sector because I was under the illusion that that was going to be some nirvana, which it wasn't. So then I found myself with socially responsible businesses and kind of working with social entrepreneurs. And I did a long time of marketing and copywriting and consulting in that area. And now I have a tea company. I have my own tea company called Ducky Life Tea that I'm running with my daughters. That's the college plan, is a tea company. And then I also coach and work with people individually on these very areas: sex, money, power, love, freedom. Yeah.
So basically, I've been a Benedictine monk. I have been a teacher. I have been a political organizer. I've been a social worker. And then I've been co-manager of this intentional community. But within the intentional community, I've done painting, I've done sheetrock work, I've done retail sales. But the most valuable job that I had, because it's where I really learned how to work, was I was the housekeeper, the house cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Cleaned 7 houses a week. Cleaned all the rooms when people moved out or visitors came and left, and cleaned up. We have a big breakfast in the morning, and I cleaned up the breakfast, the dining room, you know, and that was my job, and I loved it. It's where I learned how to work. I could see what I was doing, and all. Yeah, I was present. I became present to what I was actually doing, like I never have before.
Yeah. I've always said that everybody should answer the phones, wait the tables,
Absolutely.
and clean the toilet, and then you get a pretty good idea of you know, like what really goes on in the ground, and how to go from there and make changes from there.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Thanks.
Are we done?
Thank you.
Time.